Hello all, my name is Tyson Torres, and this is my debate project for Fish and Wildlife Management for the fall semester of 2019. And my debate project is going to be on the importance of sweat bees in the ecosystem. Okay, just so we can get a little familiar, here's a little couple of good facts for the sweat bees. There are 1,000 species found in the United States, in Canada and other states as well, but in the United States there's 1,000. They can be solitary or they can also be asocial, which just means that they can be known to um, fly alone or travel alone or stay alone, or they also will be known to come together in hives and have a queen and do typical other bee things. They are not aggressive. They're not known to be aggressive. They're actually very patient when it comes to being interacted with by humans. They are attracted to human sweat. It has something to do with the sweat content in our sweat as human beings. Also, they aren't known to sting people unless provoked, either by being touched or, basically if a bee lands on you, or a sweat bee, excuse me, if a sweat bee lands on you and you press up against it, it will sting you. But as long as it's unprovoked, there's little to any chance of it actually stinging you. According to the Schmidt's Pain Index, it has the least painful sting out of all bees. So these are just a couple of facts that I found important to know about sweat bees. Okay, so here are a couple of pros for sweat bees. They're important pollinators, like most bees, so they carry pollen on the back of their legs, or on their back legs, to their hives. They don't have what would be considered a nest. They burrow into like unpopulated soil or bare soil, a better way to put it. Um, but they are good pollinators, stuff like fruits and flowers, usually small flowers, but they diet on pollen from flowers. They also, like I said before, they eat the salt from our sweat as humans. That's why they're called sweat bees, because they typically have a inherent, I guess the best way to put it is, want or need for that sweat that humans produce. So that's some of their diets. Their development, well, like I said before, they develop it in burrows or caves and other things like that. They have a peristoid larva, which basically means that as they are growing into an actual bee, the larva will kill the insect that it is attached to or living off of. Okay, so now that we got done discussing some of the pros, we can talk about some of the cons. So, cons again would be they're attracted to humans, which is could cause humans to think of them as more of a pest species. They they aren't typically known to be aggressive, like I said before, but the ones that do sting are the females if they're bothered. Now, if a bee was to land on a human and the human didn't do anything about it, just let the bee go about its business and let it, collect what it was going to collect and then fly away, it won't sting. But typically, if it is bothered or if you try to remove the bee from your skin and you surprise it or it feels like it's going to be attacked, typically it will sting. And the way its stinger works is it will inject the stinger into you and it will pump venom into whatever surface it is stung until basically the the stinger is removed. So it's important that if you're ever stung by them to remove the stinger as quick as possible. They can be known as an invasive species. They do hang out around, a lot around humans. They can build their nest into human populated areas. Like if there's a building that has old wood or old beams that they can burrow into to make their hives, they typically will. And that's kind of why they could be considered a pest species, because of their ability and to be around humans and just their ability to basically be everywhere that we wouldn't want them to be. Okay, cool. So a couple of things that are scientifically supported. Everything with a blue star is a pro, and everything with a red star is a con. So bees are good pollinators, like I've said many, many, many times. They're good at taking pollen and spreading amongst anything, crops, all of it. Okay, and so another good thing that I think I have brought up before is that they can nest in bare soil, which means that they're bringing that pollen with them around bare soil, or they're pollinating areas that don't have any plants, and that's typically what they're trying to do, is build their nests or hives in the ground where they're typically not going to bother anyone, and that's kind of what they're looking for when they burrow into wood or anything like that, because they typically aren't going to build a nest in like a garage. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to build a hive, a like full bee's nest, what you're normally seeing on, you know, in normal like a wasp nest or something like that. No, they're just going to burrow into whatever they feel is close to bare soil. They typically aren't trying to bother anybody, but that's a pro, that they're not trying to be invasive and take over anything. They're just trying to build their nest so they can raise their young and stuff. So, like I said before, they could be considered an invasive species because of their hunger for that salt content in human sweat. So most of the times, the scientific support of that is just that the salt content in our sweat is what's provoking them to come near us and collect that. I think I said before in the cons that they're going to burrow into old wood or any area that they feel is close to a bare soil type area. So like if you're at a park and the pavilion or whatever is made of old wood, it was built long ago, and you see that like these bees are making their nests there, and typically they're excuse me, I keep calling it a nest. It's their burrow or their hive, basically, where they can have many, many entrances into them, and typically they'll have like a bee watch system where the bees will watch the entrances to make sure that no other bees are coming in to take over their hive. You will find them anywhere where there's human traffic. A lot of places, like things like pools, or anywhere where there's going to be people there that are sweating, and they're gonna find a way to get that sweat content. So it's important to look into that, and you know the science just shows that that's going to be part of it. Is that you're going to find bees anywhere that these sweat bees anywhere that humans are going to be. When we're talking about the economic effects of sweat bees, we're talking right back to the general basis of pollination of crops and any type of really flower or fruit or anything like that. These are the types of bees that you want there to make sure that your crops are being pollinated. And a lot of the times, you know, the farmers can use these guys to pollinate their crops. The downside to this, or the con, I guess you could say, is that they are affected by pesticides, like most bugs. So these pesticides do end up, you know, killing these guys, and they can't do their job. So that's a con, and it's important to look at these guys to help us and not to hinder us. Even though people who are uninformed, let's say uninformed, would consider them more invasive because, you know, they're the type of bees that are gonna fly next to you or fly near you. These guys can be helpful, and farmers can use them to pollinate their crops. And like I said before, many people can consider them a pest, especially working farmers, because, you know, they're out there in the field, they're working hard, and they're sweating, and the bees are going to go near them, basically. So I think it all depends on the outlook of the farmer and what the farmer thinks of the bees. Okay, looking on the ethical side, I think this is a little bit of a more of a rinse and repeat topic. I think I've kind of covered this a little bit more in other slides, but just to kind of go over what I think affects the ethics part, is they are important to the ecosystem, much like all bees or anything that affects growth of an ecosystem. You know, you these guys are just as important as water or, you know, sunshine in any situation of crop or anything like that. These are the ones that are helping the system out, and they're doing it unknowingly. You know, they're just doing what bees do, and they're helping us in so many ways. So ethically, I think it's important that we do try to keep these guys alive and keep them in their working condition. You know, working, you know, as they do, and they do it so very very well just by the evolution of how they've came to be how they are. And it's unfortunate that they, you know, some people would consider them a pest or anything like that. I mean, when doing research for this, I think I found a couple of pages that were just dedicated to how to get rid of these bees and how, you know, what's the best way to do it. And I think what people are missing is that it's very important that we don't do that, because we need these bees to pollinate our crops or pollinate anything that we use or eat or anything. So I think it's important that ethically we try to keep these guys alive and we keep them going where they're at. Another good thing to know is that they typically don't sting people. Like the females can, I think I stated that earlier, that the females can, but that's only if they are being provoked or if they feel like they're in danger at all. And that's most things in the wild. I mean, if you see a bear, leave the bear alone. You know, don't don't poke the bear with a stick. If you see a bee, just let the bee do what the bee's got to do, and it will typically will leave you alone. I think I said this before that many people want to get rid of them. That's a con of ethics. You know, people, they just don't want to be bothered by bees, and you can't blame people for that. You know, you want to walk through the park with your dog, your kids, or whatever, and you don't want to be bothered. So I think that's a con that needs to be considered. That they could be considered a pest or invasive, because they're gonna try to gather that salt from you, and most people aren't gonna be okay with that. So I think it's one of those things to consider if you're thinking about if these guys are important to our ecosystem. But I do think they are. And if you are informed about what they're actually doing and that they're not landing on you to sting you or harm you, they're just basically going out for lunch, I think if more people knew about that, then they would definitely be on the side of just, you know, letting them be and hopefully not swinging at them and swatting them off their arms.